to Rick Sharga, who is the CEO of CJ Patrick Company. He was formerly with Adam, which is an outlet that just produced a new report showing that home buyers, they are still, in many places, feeling the squeeze. Rick should be joining us now. Rick, thank you for your time. Can you hear us okay here?
I can hear you fine. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you for being with us, although I get the sense that you're going to be sharing some information that some potential home buyers may not be exactly thrilled to hear. Bring us up to speed for people who want to get into a new home in Metro Atlanta. What's the state of play?
Well, the state of play in Metro Atlanta is pretty much the same state of play we're seeing in most of the country right now. Very, very difficult for your average household to be able to afford to buy a house. Affordability today is probably it's been in 40 years since the 1980s. And back then we had the excuse of mortgage rates routinely being 18, 19, 20%. This time it's really more of a fundamental issue. We don't have enough supply to meet the increasing demand of a growing population. And that's caused home prices to go up. And unfortunately, mortgage rates went up a couple of years ago. And that 1-2 punch really has made it difficult for a lot of people to achieve that dream of home ownership.
Rick, I think a lot of people are going to hear what you just said. Probably the worst it's been since the 1980s, and they're going to react with some alarm. You point to this supply and demand issue you're talking about here. I am no economic expert, but I suspect a lot of people would hear that and say, well, isn't supply and demand supposed to be an economic law that brings cost closer to parity? Whenever one side of the equation's out of whack, the other compensates. If supply is too low right now, you'd think there'd be an incentive to start building more homes because there's clearly a demand for it. Why is that not happening?
Oh, how many hours do we have to talk about this, Zach?
We've got a little bit of
It's a
time, and this is important. So, Rick, the floor is yours because I think people definitely want to hear this.
you know it's a very nuanced and kind of complex situation. And the Adam report today really talks about the end result of what you and I are talking about, where in 96% of the counties across the country, homes are less affordable than they've been historically. But we really need to go back probably to the Great Recession in 2008 to see the beginnings of what we're dealing with today. We got through that housing market crash where home prices fell about 30% across the country, much higher in some areas. And home builders underbuilt new homes for more than a decade. If you looked at the 5 years going into 2008, on average, they completed about 1.4 million new homes a year. And since then, the average has been about 787,000 a year. So about half of what they'd been building prior to the housing crash. And the builders got caught with a lot of inventory they couldn't sell. A lot of the smaller builders went out of business because they were taking losses on all those properties. So they've been building more slowly during a period of time when the population in the country has gone from about 300 million to about 340 million. And even with all of those kind of supply and demand forces at play, we were doing okay until COVID hit. And when COVID hit, the Federal Reserve sort of sprang into action. It reduced the interest rates on the federal funds rate to zero for an extended period of time, bought trillions of dollars of mortgage securities in order to keep enough capital in the market for people to buy homes. And what happened then was mortgage rates dropped to historically low levels, 2.5%, 3%. And that created a feeding frenzy of buyers who wanted to take advantage of those rates at a time when there weren't a lot of homes for sale. And that resulted in bidding wars by people looking to buy homes. So home prices went up about 30% in less than 2 years. Then inflation got out of control. The Fed stepped back in, raised the Fed funds rate in an unprecedented manner, and mortgage rates doubled virtually overnight. That had never happened in the history of the US, where mortgage rates doubled in a year. And in 2022, they doubled overnight. So we went from people being able to afford homes, even with prices moving up pretty rapidly because of these 2.5%, 3% mortgages. And suddenly, somebody who'd been planning to buy a $400,000 house realized they had to buy a $200,000 house, and there weren't any of those available. So it was a big shock to the housing system. And honestly, we're probably in year 3 or 4 of a 5 year reset period where the market just kind of recalibrates to these new costs, and that's really what's happened here. Plus, with those low mortgage rates, a lot of people refinanced, and they'd normally be selling their house right now, but they can't afford to because they'd be trading in a 2.5% mortgage for a 6.5% mortgage on a house that's more expensive. They just can't afford to do it. So
A lot of that
the
inventory, it sounds like, a lot of that inventory getting locked in part because,
yes.
people have this great mortgage rate, and if they sell the place they move to, that they're not going to get the same kind of rate. Let me ask you this: is there any light at the end of the tunnel for somebody who wants to buy their first home, but they are listening to this and they're thinking, "Oh my goodness, this is a pretty dark picture being painted."
Yeah, even in the Adam report, there are some glimmers of hope, and the three things you have to keep in mind when it comes to housing affordability are wages, home prices, and mortgage rates. Wages have continued to go up, and they're going up still between 3.5% and 4.5% a year, which is considerably higher than the rate of inflation right now, which is about 2.4, 2.5%. Home prices have slowed down, and particularly in the South and the southeastern parts of the country, we're actually seeing markets where home prices are declining on a year-over-year basis. So wages going up, home prices coming down, and even though mortgage rates have ticked up a little bit because of oil prices and the war in Iran, they're still down about a half a point from a year ago. So that combination of mortgage rates coming down a little bit, home prices flattening or declining, and wages going up, that's not going to make homes affordable for everybody, but it will make more homes more affordable for more people. So it is showing some signs of hope as we look to the future.
I like being able to share that with our audience who's watching, and probably with some level of alarm here. I do want to ask you about the impact of what we've experienced over these last few years, and you've very aptly laid out a lot of the challenges that have been plaguing the housing market for generations. Owning a home was seen as a fundamental building block of
Yeah.
lifelong wealth for Americans. If there is a generation out there that for the past number of years has faced tremendous barriers to participating in that building block of wealth, what kind of long-term consequences could those folks face?
Yeah, that's a kind of scary thought you're sharing with your viewers today. You're right that home ownership has been probably the greatest source of intergenerational wealth across the country for centuries, really, right now, as far back as we've had home ownership. Um, I guess what I would say is this: we are seeing millennials, and we are actually even seeing members of Generation Z, of Gen Z, coming into the market as home buyers. They're doing a little later than the preceding generations, but they're still coming on board. And historically speaking, over time, home prices generally still go up. The reality that you're pointing out is the later you get into that role of being a homeowner, the less of that equity you're going to build over time because it does sort of compound over the years. So what I do tell young people that are looking to buy is look for those opportunities. Don't overextend because the worst thing you can do is get into a home before you're actually able to support that financially. But get into find that home that you can comfortably afford sooner rather than later. You're paying your landlord's mortgage if you're a renter, and better to be building that equity yourself. And there are opportunities out there. One of the trends we're seeing is people continue to move from more expensive areas to less expensive, whether that means they're uprooting from a state like California and New York and moving into less expensive states, or maybe they're in a state like Georgia where they're moving out of a major metropolitan area into the suburbs or even the exurbs to find a house they can afford.
Rick Sharga, CEO of the C.J. Patrick Company, with a lot of insight on a topic I know a lot of people are paying close attention to. Rick, thank you very much.
Thank you.